Hi, I'm Dina Rudick. I run Anthem Multimedia, a small video production firm here in Boston. We specialize in life science storytelling and also other sorts of short form documentary, cinematic documentary. And I am really excited to be delivering this content to you all about pre-production. I love to get on my soapbox and say that productions live or die starting in pre-production, and that your edit begins in pre-production. I can get a little carried away, so I want to tell you a few things first off. One is that this is the opinion of one person. I have my way of doing things, and it's been working for me thus far, though I am just one person, and if you ask somebody else in this industry how they go about pre-production, you will probably get a completely different set of answers or advice. You know, even though I have my process, there's times when the process doesn't work or it works differently, or you have to adapt. In fact, I just am working on a production right now where I did really great pre-production and I had to kind of throw it all out the window in the middle of my production week. So that happens. That said, with a really solid plan, you will be a much more nimble, informed producer in the field, director in the field. Okay, so then point number 2 is this. In the life of a production, this is really a gross oversimplification, but in the life of a production, you'll have your producer, and I'm putting pre-production in that camp, your director, the ringleader for all of the filming, etc., and then your editor, in charge of the post-production kingdom. And in many productions, those 3 roles are covered by 3 different humans. In my world, all of those 3 humans are me. I think it's really important and useful to think about your producer self as different from your director self, as different from your editor self. Each one of those roles comes with a completely different set of considerations, and also people further down the line, your director and your editor are inheriting decisions made by the previous roles. And the person who is last in the decision tree, I don't want to say wins, but their imprint is the resonant ringing one. So your editor is going to make decisions that will overrule your director and will overrule your producer and pre-producer. So I think it's really useful to really separate out, when you're directing and you're filming in the field, thinking, well, I know that my producer self had this intention, but reality is it's this, and you adapt and you just change the plan. And then when you're editing, it's super important to be able to divorce yourself mentally from everything you hoped it would be and just look clearly at what it is, and then you can make much better decisions. So let's get to the content of what I want to share with you. So if I gave my course a title, I would call it Your Edit Begins Now. Pre-production as the foundation for successful storytelling. Okay, so I have 8 points here. Start with 1. You want to create a map. It's really going to guide you from the very beginning all the way through your edit. And the clearer you can be about the why of your video, the better you will be to figure out the what of your video. So step 1, come up with your goal. What's the goal of your video? Why are you doing a video? And then within that, who's your audience? Who are you trying to reach? Think about where this film will be distributed, or where will it live? Is it going to be an online experience? Do you hope for some sort of a theatrical release? Is it television? Because knowing those details about who you're trying to reach and how you're going to reach them really will actually inform a lot of decisions you make about how you film. And from your technology to your budget. Core message. Okay, so this is 3 parts. Core message. This is really big. After they're done watching this piece of content that you create, what do you want them to know? what do you want them to feel, and then what do you want them to do? 3 parts. So when I talk about core message, think about it as know, feel, and do. Those are distinct, and treat them as such. So write all those things out. And then you think about, like, what's the content of this thing you're trying to create in the world? Is it all interviews? Is it B-roll, which just basically means stuff that's not interviews that you're filming? Is it like pictures or handout video, or is it graphics? Is it text? Like, what is the stuff that creates your video? And, you know, obviously this can change, but it's really important to just have an idea when you start. Who are your key voices? So let's say you're doing a profile of a family and someone in the family has a rare disease. Who are you hearing from? Are you hearing from the person with the rare disease, him or herself? Are you hearing from parents? Are you hearing from siblings? Are you hearing from experts, doctors? Figure out who are your key voices. And I will caution you that more is not better. People are going to be able to track narratively on a relatively small number of voices. And they're going to really want to attach to characters. And you don't want to spread your attention of your audience too thinly. Think about it in terms of what is the work that each one of these voices is contributing, and how is it distinct from the others? And story. Finally, story. So I'm going to come back to this one. It's really important. But put simply, you need to have a story with a beginning and middle and an end structure. Even if you don't know what your end is, you need to be able to say it in a satisfying sentence that has a beginning, kind of a middle, and an end. Other very important things in your initial roadmap: timeline and budget. Knowing these things up front will really shape every decision you make. So if you know you need this film in a month, then you will shift your ambitions about what you're filming and what you're editing, what you're gathering. You're going to shift that to suit that timeline. If you know you have $0, that's going to really make some big decisions for you. It's really great to know some of these constraints of time and money as early as possible. So let's talk about story again. This is number 2. This is all about defining your conceptual architecture. So first, you want to distill your narrative, distill your story. Throw out the idea of needing to write it all out in like a paragraph, and instead just like write down the phrases and words and imagery that comes to mind. Just write it all out, everything that's in your head, and then I would just pare it down and down and down. So you almost have, I won't call it a haiku, it's going to be longer than that, but something that is just really terse. You would never, your audience won't ever read this. It's just something to really help guide you. Within this defining your conceptual architecture, really hone in on your theme. I mean, this is like a couple words. It could be the idea of what is a hero or what is a promise. So I would encourage you to really get essential about these themes and have it in 1 to 3 words. Really, really short. And then the last thing in your conceptual architecture, this is like not essential to every production, but if you have creative rules or creative constraints, what are they? The production that I just finished filming, one of the themes is that of deep listening, and we decided to reflect that as a creative rule in our aesthetic choices by not lighting anything and following the content as gatherers rather than adding. So we were trying to like bring that idea of deep listening with a creative constraint. If you do have a creative constraint, I encourage you to pin it to a concept. Come up with, if you have an idea, like make sure it fits your concept, and because if it doesn't, it's just gonna feel like frivolous and distracting rather than resonant and additive. 3, gather the gatherables. So what I mean by that is if you're going to be using photos or handout footage or clippings from a newspaper, that, get it ahead of time. Don't wait until post-production. You really want it as early as possible because it's going to inform how you shoot, what you ask, all of these things. Get that early. Get that up front. Number 4, pre-interview and research. You want to hit a sweet spot. You want to come informed so you know how to help them navigate their content and you know how to ask really intelligent and sensitive questions. So what that means is that you have to get to know the people that you're going to be interviewing in as much as you can. I mean, sometimes you have no access to these people beforehand. So in which case you Google stalk them. You do as much research as you can and you come in informed. But you want to know as much about your subjects as you can without them having rehearsed their answers with you. I did an article about this and I talked about interviewing tips for these sorts of stories. So it's on my website. So I think pre-production will make you a much better director. It will make you a much better editor. It will save you a ton of money and time and heartache. And sometimes it doesn't work very well, or it doesn't work the way you expected it to. But it will always serve you well to be organized and clear in your thinking, and that will guide you to the best possible production.